Here we go. Hello, everybody. Sorry for that slightly late start. Oh, are we going? Oh. Hello, everyone. Is this working? Yes, we're live. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Sorry for that slightly late start. Hope you guys had a fantastic lunch and are now refueled to take on board some more information in our next exciting installment into the world of search. And it is my pleasure to kick things off a bit quicker than usual because I want Charlotte to have all the time in her presentation to introduce to you Charlotte. Now, Charlotte Tomlinson is leading Halam's award-winning SEO and content marketing teams. She's got 10 years of experience in marketing and was actually previously Halam's head of SEO, running many successful campaigns for B2B and B2C SMEs and enterprise-level clients. She also studied English language and literature at Oxford University, where she honed her research and analytical skills. She's also a very well sought after public speaker, and she's been on stage at Nottingham Digital Summit, if any of you have been there, in front of an audience of 500 digital marketers. And she's also delivered international SEO training to a bunch of people, even for the UK government, and doing workshops for them. So we're very, very lucky to have her. And she's going to be talking about using search data to actually power your marketing strategy. So with that said, I hand the floor over to you, Charlotte. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today, and we look forward to your talk.
Thanks very much, Larry. Thanks for that introduction. Bear with me. I would just be sharing my screen. Okay. Great. So hopefully you can see my slides now.
Yep, we can see that.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. So let's kick off then. So as Larry said, today I'm going to be talking to you about using search data to power your marketing strategy. So Larry has already done an intro to me, so I won't go on about this too much. But as he said, I work at Halam, which is a full-service digital marketing agency based in the UK, and I head up our SEO and content marketing teams. I've worked with global brands, including B2B, SaaS, professional services, through to B2C as well, in healthcare, apparel, travel, all sorts. So hopefully, I've built up quite a wealth of insight that I can share with you now from my experiences. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me, especially if you've got any questions that you would like to follow up with at the end. And this is a nice, silly photo of me at Epcot in Disneyland because it's one of my favourite places. Just a tiny bit more about Halam. So we started in 1999. So we've had many successful years in the digital industry. There's around 55 of us based in the UK and further afield now, actually, as well. And we are the very proud holders of 3 Drum Grand Prix Awards. But enough about me and Halam. Let's get into what we're actually going to be talking about today. So I'll go through the what. So what is it we're going to be discussing, who this is relevant for, but most importantly, I think why. Why should you actually be interested in this as a topic? How does it apply to you in your roles? And what can you actually do with this information? So hopefully I'll be giving you some actionable insights and recommendations as we go through as well. So I'd like to start with the why. So I've put this talk together and have spoken about it before as well, because I believe there's a wealth of insights that we're not currently using as effectively as we could be for marketing strategy. So when it comes to search data, it's definitely the realm of those who work in SEO from a keyword research perspective and paid search. But I think this data can be applied more widely and it can be used at various stages of marketing strategy and planning. A lot of the time, this data can be free to access or is pretty accessible with a small subscription fee. So kind of looking at it, analysing it, working out where to use it is a bit of a no-brainer, really. Another reason why I think it's important is it will help you to join the dots between sort of the high-level marketing strategy for your brand, whether you work in-house or if you work in an agency and you're responsible for working with clients on those more high-level marketing strategies, not even just digital strategies, marketing and general strategies. So it'll tie the dots between that and the more tactical work across organic and paid activity as well. Hopefully with the ultimate aim of making you better at your job, which is always useful. We all want to get promoted and earn more money. So yes, hopefully that will be a bit of a selling point as well. So who's this for? It's quite a wide remit, I would say. So from marketing professionals generally, through to sort of more digital channel specialists, so SEO, paid media consultants as well. So CMOs, heads of digital, marketing managers. I think everyone really can learn how to apply the insights from search data to their roles and to the work that they're doing. So I've covered off the why and who this is for. So what are we actually talking about here? So what is search data? Some of you will be aware of what it is. Some of you won't necessarily be as aware. So let's cover that off first. To talk about it, I like to refer to a slightly silly example from my own life. So when you're looking for a solution to a problem, so that could be, your new hairdryer is just, you need a new hairdryer because yours is just blown up. This actually did happen to me the other week. Or a slightly more serious example, you need a new piece of software. Perhaps you manage the HR processes in your business and your boss has asked you to research, what software we should be using. Where do you turn at that point? Where do you go to look for that information? I think we all know the answer to this. Google. So Google, and the reason we talk about Google, because obviously there are other search engines available, but the latest data as of January 2022 is that Google has a 92% market share. So myself and other digital people tend to refer to Google. In some markets, other search engines have predominance, such as Baidu in China, but for the purposes of this, we'll be focusing on Google. So Google processes 99,000 search queries every second, which equates to 8.5 billion searches per day and 3 trillion global searches a year. And this is kind of growing all the time. To put that in a little bit more context, back in 1998, Google was processing just over 10,000 search queries a day. So it's gone from 10,000 search queries a day to 8.5 billion a day, which is kind of crazy. So Google is hugely successful at answering questions and queries from people across the globe. It's amazingly good at matching useful content with a searcher's intent. So what does this all mean for us? So all these search terms, these phrases, often referred to as keywords by people who work in SEO and paid, all the questions and essentially all the problems too posed by our customers every day, is actually a treasure trove, really, of information, data, and insights that can inform your marketing research, your strategy, and your tactics. So you just need to know where to look and how to use that data effectively. Too often this data is only looked at, I would say, as part of a search marketing strategy, so a paid unorganic sort of SEO strategy. But as I said earlier, I think it can provide really crucial value in the earliest stages of market research and strategy planning for brands. So that's what we're going to be going into now with the meat of the presentation. So what are we going to be covering? We'll be looking at how you can utilize search data for your marketing strategy planning. I'm going to be focusing on market research, competitive research, and customer research. I've referred quite a lot to B2B examples, especially SaaS. That's what I've got quite a lot of experience in. But these principles and these methods can be applied to different B2B and indeed B2C as well. So don't feel restricted by that in any way. Okay, so first up then, marketing strategy. I'm aware that a lot of you will be probably more familiar than myself in terms of marketing strategy and planning the strategy for your brands. But I thought it'd be useful to just do a very quick intro to this, just to the top level principles and how search data actually fits into that for those who maybe aren't so familiar. So what actually is a marketing strategy? So at Hallam, we like to present this as a coherent set of analyses, choices, and actions that come together as a unified response to important challenges that a business faces. So in our case, that will be our clients. We understand what they're trying to achieve, what their objectives and what their challenges are. And then we are able to go away, put together the analysis and the response to that in order to achieve their aims. How does this break down a bit further? So it really falls into these three core elements. We begin with diagnosis. So I'm sure you all know you can't put together a plan or a strategy without doing discovery, doing the research, doing the diagnosis up front. So you know what you're trying to actually achieve, what you're working with. So during this first stage, we'll be identifying obstacles and opportunities, looking at the nature of the challenge. So we'll be looking at category trends for that industry, for that client, the competitive landscape, doing customer research, understanding their expectations and strengths and weaknesses as well of both the business they're working with and their competitors too. We can then use all of this insight during the diagnosis to put together the plan. So we'll be drawing on sources of advantage and articulating a set of choices around how to achieve the goals. And then finally, we'll then turn to outlining the channels and tactics that we'll use in order to achieve the goals. So that is really, really important that the tactics come right at the end, once you've done all of the research and the planning prior to that. So in terms of search data then that I was referring to before, I think it really, really comes into its own during the diagnosis phase. So during the research phase, and as any good marketer knows, that is a huge priority before putting together any sort of definite kind of marketing plan or strategy or tactics. I also just wanted to very quickly cover off this model, which again will be familiar to people who've studied marketing strategy in general, and that's the STP marketing model, which refers to the market segmentation, targeting, and positioning process that takes place before putting your marketing strategy together. So when you're creating your targeting and positioning strategy, you've got to evaluate the potential and commercial attractiveness of each segment that you're looking to go after. So a market segment is a group of people, group of customers who share one or more common characteristics, and they're grouped together for marketing purposes. So once you've done the segmentation, you can then decide who you're going to be targeting, and then develop the detailed product positioning, including the marketing mix that you're going to use to target that segment. So we'll be referring back to some of these stages as we go throughout the rest of the presentation, and specifically talk about how search data and the different types of research can feed into these key steps in terms of marketing strategy. Okay, so hopefully you're still following. We're now going into the kind of the key tactics and how we can use search data for market research, customer research, and competitor research. So market research, this is where it all begins. It's that diagnosis. So why do we do market research? We may want to test the validity of a new business concept. We may want to be refining a business plan. And we want to answer key questions to enable us to put a plan together. So this could be, what's the market size? So is it actually large enough to be attractive to me? Are we actually going to be able to make money out of this? What are the market dynamics? So who are the key players? Who are my competitors going to be? What do I need to do in order to compete or differentiate myself from those competitors? And it also helps us understand customers and the need for the products and services that you are hoping to put out into the market. And market research typically involves these key things across primary and secondary research, both qualitative and quantitative. So your primary research will be things like focus groups or surveys of customers, or it could even be ethnographic research, which is where we study consumers actually in the place where they will be consuming the products, whether that's, in a work environment, home environment. And that's all the kind of really qualitative, useful data around customers that will help inform the strategy. And often this is supplemented with secondary research, such as, Googling, doing your research on Google, looking at social media and how other brands are positioning themselves, looking at potential social media sentiment as well. So how customers are reacting to competitors in your space, for example. We can also look at publicly available research, so Statista and other providers, and generally third-party reports for our industries as well. So these are all kind of traditional market research methods. Each are useful in their own right, but can also have their limitations. And I think this is why it's really important to explore other insights that we can get. So in the example I'm going to be talking about, looking at search data alongside these research methods to really build up a full picture of the market and to actually do more thorough market research than potentially would have been able to do prior. So just to bring this to life a little bit, so this is a very kind of, I guess, simple example, and is, I suppose, bread and butter for people who work in kind of SEO and paid media. But just imagine for a minute that you are a new business, or you're planning to add a new product or service to your offering to your current business. So essentially, market research is all about conducting the research to work out whether this is a good idea, right? And really kind of simple keyword research can come in here to help inform these decisions, to actually find out if there is search demand for the product or service that you are looking to offer. So for keyword research, we use tools like Ahrefs, SEMrush, SimilarWeb, which are all third-party tools. You can also use Google's Keyword Planner as well, which is free to use. And bear in mind, some tools that do have a fee attached do actually have free versions available as well, such as Ahrefs' free keyword generator. And what we can do is look at the search volume, so how many people are searching for what we are hoping to bring to the market. And we can also look at trends over time to see whether it's growing or shrinking. So this is a very, very simple example just to kind of illustrate what I'm referring to, but you could obviously look into a lot more detail at a breadth of keywords around a topic. So here in this graph is the search volume trends for HR software that we've taken from one of the tools that we use at Hallam. And we can see that over time in the UK, the search volume for this trend has been increasing. So alongside lots of other research, of course, that you'll be doing, this is indicating to us, okay, this could be a good area for us to potentially move into. We need to obviously do a lot more digging into it, but it helps to back up any other decisions that we make. Another approach to this as well is using Google Trends. So the tools that I was referring to on the previous slide, the third-party tools such as SEMrush and Ahrefs, are really useful. Sometimes that data does need to be taken with a bit of a pinch of salt, but it does tend to be fairly accurate, I would say. But Google Trends is Google's own data on how interest in search terms, so specific search terms and topics, has changed over time. So we can look at Google Trends to work out decrease or growth in interest over time for topics. So take this example here from digital marketing. It's potentially a bit of a silly example, but it gives you an idea of what I'm talking about. So imagine you're an agency and potentially just specialize in web design currently or another area, and you're looking to expand your services and choose which services to maybe double down on. You're going to want to do customer research via surveys, interviews, looking at market demand and all of these other things. But you can use something as simple as Google Trends to work out whether interest in certain areas of digital has grown over time. So in this example, we can see the blue line there is interested in SEO. You could even put in SEO agency to make it a bit more specific, and there was similar data on SEO agency as well. And you can see that over time, interest in SEO has increased, especially over the pandemic, and then more recently kind of dropped off a little bit. So you can use these insights to help guide your strategic thinking over which services to increase focus on, or even actually to start offering to your customers if you have that capability. And Google Trends is also really useful at the market research phase to understand your current brand awareness in relation to competitors in the market. So I used a HR software example here again. So these are 3 key players in the HR software market in the UK. And so you can put in their brand names into Google Trends, and it will show you over time how many people essentially have been searching in Google for those terms. And you can then make some inferences from this. So Breathe HR is clearly doing something right when it comes to their brand activity. And this really helps give you a useful picture of your current market share alongside kind of other research being carried out. So, if I was Natural HR or Cezanne HR here, I'd be thinking, I need to look at increasing our brand awareness. Paid advertising potentially needs to be part of our strategy. So brand advertising, content and digital PR campaigns, and that's all going to feed into our tactical plan later on. But this, I would say, is only really scratching the surface. There's so much more you can do with search data, especially from Google Trends, to understand the market and how you compare to competitors and benchmarking yourself. So search data can actually be used to answer questions around what is our share of voice in the market. So a lot of you will be familiar with what share of voice is. So traditionally, it's been the percentage of budget each company puts towards advertising compared to the total sector. So it used to be used as kind of metric to understand, how much you were getting in front of your customers from an advertising perspective in comparison to the other players advertising in the same market. And that was pretty easy to calculate before digital marketing changed the landscape, because you'd have set priced ad slots on TV and radio, set priced ad listings in print media. So it was fairly easy for marketers and advertisers to work that out and get a fairly decent idea of what their share of voice is. But it's now become more complicated with the changing landscape. So what we can do is actually use search data to understand market share by doing a share of search calculation. So share of search has grown a lot in sort of interest over the past couple of years. There's been a lot of work done by the likes of Les Binet, who's kind of a big dog in the marketing world, as I'm sure a lot of you know. And essentially what it looks at is the number of organic searches a brand has received over time as a proportion of the total number of searches made for every brand in its industry. So I'll give you an idea of how you calculate this to help you understand. So you can use Google Trends data to calculate this. So what you would do is pull out Google Trends data for every competitor, so for all of your competitors and yourself, going back kind of as far as you can. As you can see on here, we've gone back to about 10 years. This is one of our clients, gone back 10 years, so that we get the monthly data of how many people have searched for that brand in Google. And then what we do is download the files and import into spreadsheets, and then we compute a 12-month trailing average for each of the companies as a proportion of the total market. So you can see this visualized here on this graph. So our client is the bottom sort of quadrant there in black. So we can see over time how their share of search from a brand search perspective has grown over time in comparison to their core competitors in the market. So this has been really useful for us, especially when it comes to understanding the impact of digital activity like brand advertising, like content campaigns and PR awareness campaigns. So I'd recommend, that you do go away and do this for yourself. There's lots of resources online as well that go into more detail around how you actually physically do the calculation. So in comparison to share of voice, which I was talking about before, which is very hard to calculate now, this is a bit more of a easy to calculate, and it's a bit more of a universal metric, I would say, as well, because it applies more in B2B, where huge kind of large scale advertising isn't as common as something like fast moving consumer goods. Share of search is also really useful because as brands invest more in more modern marketing tactics, more digital tactics that don't require ad spend necessarily, like organic video, social media, etc., then again, this can give a better picture, I would say, of the market and help you benchmark against competitors more clearly. I'll show you just another example. So this is from Les Binet, and he looked at various categories. So this is the automotive category. And he found that the share of search did correlate with the market share in all of the categories that he looked at. So this has been backed up by various studies as well. So that's share of search and how you use search data from Google Trends to benchmark yourself against competitors. Another way you can use share of search is to look at different pools of demand in a category to highlight focus areas for growth. So in this example, and this was done by Grace Kite and Pascal Moyon. So what they did was they took things a little step further. So they collected a year's worth of search data in this gifting category, and then they grouped keywords together based on topics to work out what pools of demand were most popular. So in this example, they found that keywords that had person plus occasion were most often searched, so they were the most in demand. And this really is useful because it helps position a brand for growth. So we know what customers are looking for, and we can use that in the creative, we can use that in the content, and just help inform the strategy further down the line. It's worked out in a very similar way to the brand share of search. And again, there's lots of articles online to kind of help you with that. I want to just use an example from one of our own clients where we applied this methodology using share of search to support them with their go-to-market strategy. So for this client, which is a SaaS platform, we looked at all of their search data and organized it into topics within the category. So things like organizational design, workforce analytics, essentially all the kind of things that you can do with this type of software. And then once we did the share of search calculations, we found that there was a huge amount of search volume and people searching for keywords around the topic of succession planning, and it was actually quite a high proportion there. And then secondarily, workforce planning and organizational design. So there was kind of two parts to this, because it really backed up the client's go-to-market strategy, which was to focus on organizational design and workforce planning, and for them to be their kind of core ways of connecting with customers, and the fact that the customers were really looking for that helped back that up. Succession planning was quite interesting because obviously that was very interesting to the target customers, and was also a use case for the platform as well. So what we did was then incorporated that into our content strategy. So we created some top of funnel content around succession planning, which has gone on to perform really well. So looking at this search data and share of search in quite a top level way can really help with the high level strategic planning around going to market with the software, and also the more tactical elements around content strategy, website categories, and so on. I'm just going to check time. Okay, I've got to move on a little bit. So you can also use search data to understand the demand for your products and services in international markets. So this is a really interesting one. So for our global yacht chartering client that we work with, we help them to understand where the opportunity in various European markets. So they essentially tended to focus more on the US and France as well. But we wanted to highlight that by using search data, so keyword research, that there is also a huge demand from customers in other regions as well. It seems like a really simple example, but we found that often when we're talking to clients about things like this, decisions about where to kind of break into next kind of come from a feeling from someone in house, or other factors that aren't necessarily based on data. Whereas if we can show the data and show where the demand is based on actual search volumes from third-party tools or from Google themselves, then that helps to back up those decisions. And we also have access to Google's Market Explorer as well. I think this is also available to brands and agencies, and this gives us higher level category analysis. So you can look at things like high level categories like business intelligence, and understand the country demographics, what languages people are searching in, and so on. So you can look at a keyword level, but also at a higher level if you have access to this tool. Great. So when it comes to market research, you now know how to use search data alongside your other primary and secondary research methods, understand demand. You know how to use Google Trends to look at growth and decline in search interest, and you know how to benchmark against competitors using Google Trends and share of search calculations. And also use share of search to highlight pools of demand within your category to help guide your strategy. You can also use keyword data from third-party tools and analyze search data to inform geographical targeting as well. So moving on then, let's have a look at customer research. We've already touched on this a little bit, but just to go into a little bit more detail really of how you can use search data to understand your customer segments, understand customer pain points as illustrated by what they're searching for in Google, and also look at sentiment and changing user behavior as well. So before we go in, I just wanted to share some what I think is excellent advice from Mark Ritson, who is one of the key kind of marketing strategy, I guess, industry leaders. He says your target customers aren't like you. Start from a blank page, which I think is very good advice, because I think often, especially if we're working in house, we tend to kind of assimilate customers to what we are and what we know about the products and services, but that is really not the right way of going about it. And he puts it as bluntly as your opinion isn't just worthless, it's dangerous. So we talked earlier about using those qualitative and quantitative research methods to find out who your customers actually are, and you can use search data to supplement this research as well. It summarizes into what we call killing the hypothetical customer, which is again a Mark Ritson phrase. So it's all about embracing the customer complexity, and it's not about creating, a customer persona based on who you think the customers are. It's looking at the data and being guided by the data. So where do you start? I think it's really useful to actually understand, first of all, how your customers are currently finding you. And by finding you, I mean how they're coming through to your website. So Google Search Console is a really useful tool here. If you don't have that set up already, get that set up, because Google actually tells you all of the keywords that your customers are typing into Google and then arriving at your website through. So in this example, we can see, a lot of customers are finding this client through words like org design, organizational design, but not so much for workforce planning. So that indicates to us how we're currently positioning our platform based on what we already have on the website. And what we can do then is do more general keyword research for the market as a whole, and look at what competitors are doing as well. Often I've heard, from clients and businesses that, we call our platform this, or we refer to it as this, we refer to this product as this, because that's what customers call it. But then when you actually do the research and look at the data, those words aren't actually searched for in search engines at all. So we have to go back and say, your customers aren't actually searching for those terms. These are the terms that they're searching for. So how can we apply that to what we're doing and how we're positioning the product, how we're talking about it, what we've got on our website and our content, and so on. So essentially, finding out how your customers are currently finding you is really important. So moving on, we can also use Google Search Console data to help us understand current customer sentiment as well, and attitudes to our brands. So this was actually for one of our B2C clients that we worked with a little while ago. And we found that there was a lot of people searching and coming through to the website for terms like discount codes, is this legit, or is this real, are they fake, etc., etc. And what this obviously tells us is that there is a bit of worry from customers about the legitimacy of the brand. There's a bit of wariness around purchasing, and potentially also seeing this brand as a budget retailer, and they didn't want to really be seen as a budget retailer. So this helped feed into our strategy around what perceptions might we need to change, what kind of content might we need to create for the website, and so on and so forth. You can also look at third-party data here as well. So this is first-party data from Google Search Console on your own website, but you can use a third-party tool to look at branded terms for a competitor, see what's coming up there, potentially working out, what not to do in terms of how customers are feeling towards that brand. We can also look at search data to understand customer problems and pain points to refine targeting. So in this example, we found, so this is another software example for antivirus software, and by googling antivirus, by researching antivirus software and all the different keywords and terms that people are searching for, we can understand what's going on essentially in the mind of the customer. So from these examples here, like free antivirus software, Norton antivirus software, there's a lot of searches around these terms. This kind of suggests to us that Norton software is top of mind and a market leader, that the user needs clarification on what antivirus software actually does and whether it's necessary. They want to understand and compare what the best is. They want to know within the market that what they're getting is good, and that value is really important. So a lot of people are looking for free software. So if you were a software provider in this space, how are you going to actually overcome that? So just to very quickly summarize, we want to kill the hypothetical customer using search data, and we can work out how customers are currently finding you using Google Search Console data. We can understand customer sentiment as well using Google Search Console data. And we can also identify customer pain points and problems to refine our targeting and inform our content. Okay, I'm just going to check on time. Bear with me. Okay, I've got some time. Perfect. So finally then, competitor research. So we've already touched on this a little bit. I can't really count the number of times that clients have given us a list of competitors, and then when we've actually looked at the data and who they're competing with in search for the search terms that they're going after, they're either completely missing or they are actually quite different. So it's really important that we take a step back and understand the full competitor landscape. So we've seen how you can use search data to understand your share of market and benchmark, but there's also a lot more that we can find out about competitors. So how they're positioning their products and services, who your customers actually see as your competitors, not who you see as your competitors, and who they actually are as well. And they may not just be your traditional kind of offline competitors. So how do we go about this? Again, it comes back to using those search tools with all the search data that they have to understand who your online competitors are in organic and paid search. So this is actually from SimilarWeb, but you can use various tools for this. And what you would do is actually look at your current put your domain in there and look at who the tools see as your competitors based on your current ranking keywords. That's really interesting to know because it gives you an indication of based on what you're currently optimizing for and you're currently targeting, who these tools see as your competitors and who ultimately Google would see as your competitors. If a lot of irrelevant competitors come up there, then that's obviously a worry because it means you're not ranking in Google for the terms that you want to. I would also make sure that you look at the competitor landscape for your core search terms and search keywords that you're focusing on to uncover who those competitors that you would like to be competing against for in search are as well, and combining that together. You can also look at competitor branded searches to reveal who customers see as competition in your space. So again, this goes back to a software example. But if we do keyword research around Slack, for example, we can see that a lot of customers are searching for things like Slack versus Teams or Slack versus Discord. And they're trying to find out, what the differences are between those pieces of software. That's really interesting because that's who your customer actually sees as your competition. So again, there may be some interesting insights there that you may not have thought of before. And then finally, how are your competitors actually positioning themselves? So what we can do here is use the tools to look at what the top traffic driving keywords are. So this goes back to the HR software example. We can put a competitor, so we've done our competitor research, we know who they are, put a competitor into the tool and actually work out what they're ranking really well for and what's driving a lot of traffic through to their website. So for this example, which was natural HR versus Cezanne HR, we can see that Cezanne HR are positioning themselves not just as HR software, but things like performance management system, recruitment system, absence management software. And I think this kind of insight is really helpful, especially in more complex industries or potentially more niche industries as well, to uncover insights and potential opportunities for you in terms of how to position your products and services. So just to summarize very quickly, we can use search data to identify who our competitors are. They may not be who your bosses consider your competitors. So is there a discrepancy there? Understand who your customers view your competitors to be, and also analyze how your competitors are positioning themselves in the market by looking at the search data. Right, I think we're pretty much done with time, so I'm going to very quickly summarize. So the key takeaways from today, I think it comes down to involving your search teams in the marketing planning process to uncover these kind of insights and combining that with the other research methods that you're going to be using as well. I think it's really important that we understand our market share and the pools of demand using share of search. And as I've said, it's not massively hard to do, and that can really highlight areas for growth and is really important for competitor benchmarking as well, and understanding the performance of brand activity over time. And the third thing that's I think really important is this kind of data and insight can really help your business kill that hypothetical customer and properly understand the competition using search data as well. So that is everything. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and yeah, I can take any questions or speak to you after.
Thanks so much, Charlotte. That was an absolutely amazing talk. And I especially love the bit about killing the hypothetical customer. I haven't put it in quite such graphic terms, but I think I'm going to borrow that. Thanks for sharing that with us. And obviously everyone else, Charlotte covered a lot of amazing information here. You can download her slides. Just always remember that. And I think that they'll be circulated anyway with some videos. For some reason, the timing in this next session for the next one actually starts in 2 minutes. I think I will have to jump, and I think unfortunately when I jump, it ends the session. But yes, but thank you so much, Charlotte, for that chat. And anyone else, just message her directly through the app as well. She'll be happy to answer any questions. And go and check out Halam as well, and all the great work that they do, and their case studies for more inspiration.
Thank you. Cheers, Lauren. Yeah, any
Nice
questions, just get in touch. Cheers.
Yeah. Take care. Thanks so
Bye.
much. Bye. There's a 10-second cooldown on the stream.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Cool. I think we're